Cheat Code Support Strategist by myheadinthecoudsnotcomingdown. Read by Rat Overlord. Chapter 38. Out. Summary. The aftermath of the sports festival. May slammed open the door to Recovery Girl's office, and Isuku had to jump to grab the handle and prevent the door from banging into the wall. He smiled sheepishly at Recovery Girl, who was glaring at him, and he could only hope he was as apologetic enough for both of them, because May didn't even give Recovery Girl a second glance as she made a beeline towards the bed Hitoshi was laying on.
"Extra credit-kun!"
May squealed.
"You did so good!"
Both Isuku and Recovery Girl shushed her when Hitoshi winced.
"Nice to see you too, May, but can you be excited any quieter?"
"Oh, sorry!"
May whispered loudly.
"You did amazing!"
Isuku stifled a quiet chuckle. May was trying her best, but it was still entertaining watching someone who was so undeniably loud trying to be quiet. It was like asking Isuku not to mutter. While it was theoretically possible, that didn't mean it wasn't funny to watch. He stopped laughing when Recovery Girl glared at him again.
"You two better be quiet!"
She scolded.
"It is the least you two gremlins can do for this poor child, especially considering that it is at least partially your fault that he's in this state."
Isuku looked at May in confusion, but she just shrugged helplessly and turned back to playing with Hitoshi's hair. He relaxed slightly under her touch and wrinkled his nose at the school nurse.
"It's my own fault I went over my limits, Recovery Girl. Don't blame my kidnappers just because I'm an idiot."
"They encouraged you to be reckless,"
Recovery Girl argued.
"Yeah, well, they also encouraged me to be a hero too, so there's that."
Hitoshi groaned.
"I would be just fine if I hadn't tried taking control of Dark Shadow through Tokoyami."
"So you did do that!" It took all of Hisuku's self-control to keep talking quietly. "I was wondering, because I didn't think you had said anything to Dark Shadow directly, but then you took control of her and not Tokoyami, and it was so cool!" Hitoshi gave a tired chuckle.
"Yeah, well, we'll see if it was even worth it. I still don't know if they'll even let me transfer, or if I'll just be stuck in Gen Ed."
May poked the medal that was around his neck.
"They'd all be idiots to not let you into the hero course after this. You're going to be an amazing hero, Extra Credit-kun, and if those stupid teachers can't see that, then..."
"Then what?"
Hitoshi cracked one eye open and smirked at her.
"You're gonna blow up Nedzu's office?"
May huffed.
"Well, what if I did, huh? What are they gonna do about it, huh?"
Can we not threaten the teachers when there's literally one in the room?"
Isuku fretted, glancing nervously over at Recovery Girl.
"May, at least wait until we're outside of UA." "I quite agree. In fact, you should all save all this until you are outside of UA. Out, out, out!"
Recovery Girl ordered.
"Shinso needs rest, and you two obviously have far too much energy. You can give him congratulations once he's recovered." "But..."
May tried, but Recovery Girl simply swept her cane at her legs until the two caved in and let themselves be shooed through the door.
"We'll see you later, Extra Credit-kun!"
"Yeah," Isuku added. "Thanks for beating Katsuki. That was awesome!" Isuku smiled at the sight of Hitoshi practically giggling as Recovery Girl forced them out and shut the door behind them with a quiet finality. He could begrudgingly admit that Recovery Girl was probably right, and that they were a little too much to help someone recover from a quirk-induced migraine, but at least Hitoshi knew that they were proud of him, and they'd made him laugh.
"Well, that was so rude,"
May pouted.
"Is spending a little time with our baby too much to ask?"
Isuku shook his head. "You do realize that even your whispers are loud, right? And that's not to mention the fact that you have a habit of blowing things up if you stay in one room for too long." May opened her mouth to argue, but closed it again.
"Fine. Okay, yeah, you might maybe have a little bit of a point."
"Thank you." Isuku grinned. "That's why I'm the smart one." May gasped.
"Oh, what? Mr. Let's blow up all the landmines? Smart?"
Isuku started laughing, but then the door behind them swung open again and both Isuku and May jumped when Recovery Girl poked her head out and glared at them.
"Shh!"
May grabbed Isuku's hand and started dragging him down the hall.
"Come on, Izu-kun! I think I can tell when we're not wanted."
"I don't think you even want to,"
Isuku muttered with a smile. "So, where are we going?" May stopped suddenly in the middle of the hallway, making Isuku run into her.
I hadn't gotten that far, I guess.
Isuku felt a buzz in his pocket and hesitantly picked his phone out of his pocket. He shot May a curious look, but she simply shrugged. Isuku turned back to his phone suspiciously and read the new message. From Rat Overlord. You could always try exploring the tunnels. The drive home was awkward at best. Shoto stared sullenly out the window as he waited for his father to explode. It was inevitable, he knew. He'd known ever since he'd seen Tokoyami steal the headbands from around his neck, but it had been confirmed when Endeavor had dismissed their usual driver and said he'd drive Shoto home himself. At least if they were surrounded by staff, his father showed at least the bare minimum of restraint. But without the protective barrier, Shoto had no idea when the tirade would start. It was exhausting. Finally, Endeavor broke the silence.
Did you really lose just to spite me?
His voice was deathly quiet, and Shoto froze. His father's anger usually ran hot, but somehow it was always more frightening when it was cold like this. Yelling, fire, tirades, those were all things that Shoto had been enduring for years. He knew how to handle them, how to coat his mind and body in ice so that the fire couldn't hurt him. But this had only happened a few times, which meant that Shoto had no idea if his usual strategies would even work. He had messed up even more than usual, and was going into his father's rage almost completely blind. He set his shoulders stubbornly and glared at his father in the rearview mirror. He refused to let the fear show. Losing to his classmates was one thing, but he refused to lose to his father.
You could have won.
Endeavor observed quietly.
You could have stopped that bird brain from stealing your points if you just used your fire.
Your fire. Shoto snapped before he could even stop himself. It's your fire, not mine, and I'm going to make it to the top without it.
Well, you seem to be doing a bang-up job of it so far.
Endeavor spat.
Your ice didn't even get you past the second round. What?
Endeavor scoffed.
You'll be the best with only your mother's power? I believe you found out today just where this childish rebellion will lead you, Shoto. If you hadn't shamed me so much by allowing general education and support students to surpass you, I'd almost be happy you lost. At least now, hopefully, you've learned your lesson.
Shoto flinched as if he'd been slapped. His father was happy he'd lost. His own father. And it wasn't even for a good reason, was it? No. It was because Endeavor was hoping that losing the sports festival would teach him a lesson. Well, he was wrong. Shoto refused to be the masterpiece that Endeavor wanted him to be. And to make it worse, even if his father was happy, he was still going to get punished just because of who he'd lost to. He hadn't even fought that team directly. The only interaction he'd even had with them was when they were destroying the 10 million point headband, but his father didn't care about that. The only thing his father ever cared about was that the general education student had won the sports festival while Shoto had been pushed to the sidelines, and that was completely unacceptable.
I raised you better than this, Shoto,
Endeavor lectured.
You were created to surpass All Might, Shoto, so act like it. You've been blessed with the perfect quirk, and I've given you as much training as I could, but that's all going to be for nothing if you continue to act like a spoiled little brat. I made you to become the perfect hero, Shoto, my masterpiece, so stop wasting that potential and actually be my successor.
Maybe that's the problem. For some reason, Shoto couldn't stop the words from spilling out of his mouth. I'm your masterpiece, right? And you're an eternal failure. You've been the number 2 hero for how long again? Face it, Endeavor. I'm your son. So you really expect me to be any better than second best? Endeavor slammed on the brakes with enough force that Shoto went launching forward and hit his head on the seat in front of him.
What did you just say?
Shoto gripped his nose, which was now bleeding, and tried to stop the blood from getting on the car's upholstery. You heard me, old man. I'm a better failure than even you are. Endeavor glared at him for a long moment, then unlocked the doors.
Out.
Shoto stared at him in shock.
What? Out.
Endeavor growled.
If you don't appreciate everything I've given you, then maybe you don't deserve it. You insist on acting like a spoiled little child, Shoto. So let's see if a night on the streets will help you grow up.
Shoto opened and closed his mouth a few times, but there really wasn't anything he could say. He ripped the door open and didn't even grab his phone as he got out of the car and slammed the door behind him. He half expected Endeavor to roll down his window and say something like it had been a logical ruse, like Aizawa did. But no. As soon as the door closed, his father just drove away. Just abandoned Shoto on the side of an almost deserted street like he was nothing. Maybe he was. The few people on the street were beginning to stare. Not that homeless people and druggies were probably that interested in the downfall of the great son of Endeavor, but still, his father would get even more angry if the media got wind of this. Thankfully, Shoto had changed into street clothes after the sports festival, so he at least was in jeans and a hoodie instead of a school uniform. That would be even harder to pass off. Even if he walked home, Endeavor probably wouldn't let Fuyumi let him in, so Shoto shoved his hands in his pockets and resolved to just wandering the streets until the sun rose and his punishment was over. He gave one last look down the street, but Endeavor's car had already turned the corner and was out of sight. Shoto shook his head and cut through the alleyway, grabbing a beanie he'd found on the ground as he passed. It was a little too big and smelled like cigarette smoke, but at least it would cover his hair. There wasn't much he could do about the scar at the moment, but whatever, it was just one night, right?
Yeah, those cheerleading outfits were amazing!
Minetta drooled.
Yo, Yorozu really outdid herself this time. I guess so.
Kaminari grinned.
Still not looking forward to the detention Aizawa's gonna give us, though. He just doesn't appreciate art.
Minetta complained.
It's like he's gay or something.
Kaminari shrugged awkwardly. I don't know, dude. I gotta get going, man. But I'll see you Monday, alright?
Sure thing!
Minetta gave him a big thumbs up.
See you Monday!
Kaminari gave a wave when he reached the end of the street, and Minetta waited until he disappeared around the corner to let his smile fall. Hopefully, the gay comment would get the guy to leave him alone. Everyone avoided the class pervert, but it was just so much more difficult to get ignored when someone as loud as Kaminari kept seeking him out. It was irritating. Minetta was taking a shortcut home through the bad part of town when his phone rang. The caller ID was blocked, but he thought he had a pretty good idea of who it was.
How'd you enjoy the sports festival?
Pretty good throw, right? Kurogiri was business like always as he responded.
Sensei has a few students he wants you to keep an eye on. Did he say who?
Minetta asked.
I'm already watching everyone in Class 1A. Class 1B will be a little more difficult, but I think I can manage. Actually, there's a mix this time,
Kurogiri informed him.
Shigaraki has suggested the young Bakugo might make a good addition to our organization, so test the waters there. Ugh, if he doesn't blow me off first.
Minetta grumbled.
Fine, who else? That is for you to discover,
Kurogiri said cryptically.
Sensei believes the cheat code might be a student.
Minetta almost tripped over the crack in the sidewalk.
What? Seriously? Are you questioning Sensei's judgment?
Kurogiri asked, far too calmly. Minetta gulped, clearly hearing the hidden threat behind the words. No, of course not. I was just surprised is all. The analysis the guy gave me on my quirk was pretty insane.
His analytical skill is advanced beyond his years, true.
A new voice joined in the call, and Minetta froze.
But he is inexperienced. That being said, it is most likely an upperclassman in the hero course, although the support course is another likely option. I would like you to see what you can find out. Will that be a problem? No, Sensei,
Minetta stuttered.
I'll put in the request to adjust my hero costume and start keeping an eye on the upperclassmen starting first thing Monday. Good.
Sensei sounded like he was smiling.
And good work on the sports festival. You're exactly where we need you to be.
As always, I hope you enjoyed. And if you did, feel free to leave a like and comment down below, and subscribe so you can stay up to date with whenever I post. And remember to stay hydrated, not dehydrated. And as always, love yourself.